Many of you know me. My name is Scratchmod. With this video, I want to show you how to properly use Vallejo Surface Primer. A lot of people have problems with the primer. A lot of people say it doesn't work. All it is improper use of the product. It works great for me. I don't understand why other people are having problems. Okay, the primer comes in 3 different sizes. You have the 17 millimeter, the 60 milliliter, and there's also a 200 milliliter bottle. I have here the black, and I'll show you how to use this. Here's a little sample. I primed all of this with about 6 drops of primer. One more coat and it'll be completely covered. Okay. The primer is already pre-thinned, so all you have to do is pour it in your airbrush, but I prefer to add a drop or two of the airbrush thinner. This helps the primer flow better, and it keeps it from clogging your airbrush. I'm going to first put 10 drops of primer in. Nine, 10. And to those 10 drops, I'll add about 4 drops. I sometimes thin it even more, but that is good enough for now. We'll stir that up. You can mix in a separate container and pour it in. Okay, the most important thing, well, several important things to know, is that with these primers, your airbrush pressure, your air compressor pressure should be down low, between 12 and 15 or 10 and 15 psi. A lot of people are firing away at 20-25 psi, and that's way too high. Another thing is the distance. You don't want to have a wide distance, a foot or so. You can go 3 inches or even closer, and the important thing is very little paint and pressure on the first coat. You want to build it up so you have a smooth finish. If you apply too much at once, trying to get 1 or 2 coverage coats, it'll take longer to dry. It won't dry to a matte finish, and it may not cure properly. Okay, I'm going to fire up the compressor and we'll get to airbrushing. Like I said, the first coats should be nice and fine, so you barely have coverage. You can see here that I'm barely putting anything on the first coat. And what's happening is the paint is already starting to dry on the model, and it's a nice matte finish, and it gives something for the following coats to adhere to. So the next coat, you want to give a little more paint, a bit more coverage, but you don't want something like this. That's just too much. You want to work it slow. I prefer to use a dual action airbrush like this Badger Chrome, and of course gravity fed. If you have problems with the tip clogging, it's mainly due to high pressure, and what it is the paint is drying before it exits the airbrush. Another trick you can use is take the tip off if you have like this Badger Chrome and clear it out. That's if it gets clogged right up front. There we go. So the third coat I'm applying is also light, but now I'm trying to get in all the recesses, nooks and crannies. So that dries fairly quick. You can also use just straight air from the airbrush. And then you just keep applying light misted coats until you have the full coverage. Not applying heavy primer coats here, just very thin. Oh, that went a little too thick. So basically you just want to build up the paint. The same thing applies to all the colors, the 16 plus colors in the surface primer range, and also for the Model Air range of paints. You always want to go with light coats. You can thin or you can go straight out of the bottle. If you're doing a large model and you're going to have a long paint session, what I like to do is when I run out of paint, then I'll fire some clean airbrush thinner or cleaner right through it to get most of the old paint out, or primer, and then I'll continue again. You can see here that I'm getting pretty much a lot done with just 10 drops of paint, or primer. Now, if you were to apply heavy coverage coats, you wouldn't get much done with the 10 drops. But by doing light misted coats, you're going through less paint, it dries faster and smoother and to a nice matte finish. So, and that was that. 10 drops of primer. And like I said, I like to just put some in there and then just fire it through the airbrush to clean it. You can also use cotton swab, clean it up. And then I would wait a little bit and then fill it back up, and if I had to apply more I would, but as you can see here in the rear, just from those light coats, it's pretty much full coverage. With the completed model, I only want to see that section anyways, so I'm not too worried about the front writing compartment because the turret will be there. So basically, that's the full coverage. Then I can go ahead and apply base color, or in this case it's going to be most likely burnt out, so I'll go over it with the black. So that's how you use the Vallejo surface primer. The important things, as I said, is low air pressure between 10 and 15 psi. You want to apply in light coats. You don't want to hold the airbrush too far back. 3-4 inches, 5 inches is very good, maximum 6. And you want to do light coats. You don't want to try to apply too much too fast. And like I said, the primer will start to cure, well, to dry, and you can touch it, no fingerprints, and then you can apply the next light coat. Usually I'll start in one section. By the time I get to the end, I can go right back and do where I started out, and then I'll just keep giving light coats till I have full coverage. And at any nooks and crannies, I can get in there a little better up close, again with less pressure. So that's the Vallejo surface primer, proper use of it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at info@scratchmod.com. Thank you for watching.